morning, sir.
Good morning to you, my brother Sammy, and good morning to all your many viewers and many listeners.
I'm hoping you're doing well today.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I hope you're fine as well.
I'm doing well. Right. Thanks for
good,
asking.
Good.
So let's start the conversation about the Ghanaian economy, seeing that you've been a deputy minister of finance before and you understand, how these things work. So how would you describe the Ghanaian economy now?
It is a very sad situation that we find ourselves in. I would say this is an economy that put politics aside. This is an economy that is really on its knees. Because you can see what's going on. Virtually on a weekly basis, this economy is being downgraded. And when you reach a stage where you are virtually being downgraded on a weekly basis, to the extent that, as far as international investors are concerned, the international credit rating agencies and so on are concerned, our economy is now what you describe as a junk economy. It means nobody absolutely has any confidence in us. And that is terrible. When you reach that stage where effectively nobody seems to have any confidence in you, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. Come down to the economy itself, you can see what's going on. The city has been virtually in a state of collapse. Inflation, I don't know the last time this country had inflation the levels with which we are having. Naturally, that brings hardship to people. Prices of goods are going up virtually on a daily basis. Businesses effectively are on their knees because, supposing you are somebody who brings good into this economy at the beginning of this year, let's assume that you had, let's say, 10,000 cedis. What it is you could bring in now, that same 10,000 can bring in just about half. And that means you are in trouble. Because clearly what it means then is that you now have to be looking for money to add up to your capital in order to continue the same business you are doing. And that the effect that has on employment. Already we're talking about a country where the youth are losing hope. There's so much desperation, there's so much hopelessness. So there's actually what you call whipping and gnashing of teeth. And if it continues at this rate, you can only, if you are somebody who loves this country, you feel sad about it. Normally, when you're in the midst of these difficulties, you are hoping that you have leadership. Let's say it this way. There's leadership that's supposed to be competence, meaning you know to be able to find answers. Then there's also supposed to be leadership that's supposed to be compassionate, sensitive, and being able to empathize or have empathy for the people. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a leadership on both levels. That one is not competent enough. But two, which for me is even much more serious, they do not show that they are sensitive enough. They do not show that they are humble enough to accept that this problem is largely due to their own.
Now, that is where the issue lies, because as much as you would want to make the case that it's as a result of the inactions or actions of the government, that's where we are. They insist that it's as a result of COVID-19. They insist that it's as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war that has brought us where we are. And the comparison that would be made would be that between 2017, 2018, 2019, when COVID-19 struck, for instance, if you looked at inflation, we were within a single-digit space until COVID-19 struck, when things spiraled out of control. Is it not a legitimate point to make?
Yes, to an extent. But no to a much larger extent. Because even if you watch what happened even before COVID struck, you could see that this economy was already moving towards serious challenges and serious difficulties. Let me give you an example. 2019, the cedi depreciated by 13%. That's in 2019, before COVID. In 2016, when we were exiting, with all the challenges we had in that year, we're talking in 2016 where, for example, we resolved doom so in 2016. So that tells you that prior to 2016, the economy has had a lot of difficulty because without energy, your growth goes through difficulty. It creates difficulty for the economy. We also, in that 2016, had problem with what you call the tariff bearing of the FPSO, which affected our oil production. In that same 2016, because we had already gone into the IMF program, we had to go through the whole of 2016 without any financing that came from the central bank. In spite of all those difficulties, in 2016, the cedi depreciated by 9.6%. 2019, the cedi depreciated by 13%. So that tells you that already the economy was already in difficulty. By that 2019, the debt of this country had gone up from 120 billion cedis, where it was in 2016. It had gone up to at least 225 billion by 2019. By that same 2019, we're talking about debt to GDP ratio that was around 56 at the time we left office. It had gone up to about 65%. And that same 2019, we're talking about the amount of the amount of our tax revenue that we use to take care of our debts. It had gone up to as high as 91%, meaning out of every 100 cities, we're using 91 to take care of our debts. So you could see clearly that this economy was in serious challenges even before COVID. The same thing was happening. You saw, for example, the construction sector started coming down. I mean, the manufacturing sector started coming down. So challenges were already there. Now, so for them to try to seek refuge in COVID and all this Russia-Ukraine tells you that actually tells you the problem. Because you see, Sammy, if you do not accept responsibility, if you do not accept that you have a problem, you clearly will not be able to solve that problem. And the difficulty we have is that we have a group that wants to, you see, they want to just continue pretending that somehow the problem is not from them, the problem is coming from somewhere else. But Sam, how could the problem come from anybody else? If the problem is truly from Ukraine and Russia, if the problem is only from COVID, then all over around that we should be having the same issues. Côte d'Ivoire must be in the same situation. Guinea must be in the same situation. Rwanda must have the same situation. Togo, Benin, Nigeria must have the same situation. I mean, all over Africa, you must see the same situation. Have you heard of any other country that is going through what we're going through? Where inflation is pushing upward towards 40%? No. Where the depreciation of the currency is so terrible that at the moment we are one of the worst. It's almost like a junk what's the name, currency we have.
It's interesting the point you make about, world economies and how, COVID-19 has impacted on them. I'll quickly come back to the issue you raised about the debt to GDP. I'll come back to it later on. But let's stay on the world economy. We've seen how the British economy is suffering. We've seen how other world economies are suffering as a result of COVID-19. At some point, the United States of America was even suffering from the impact of COVID-19. There are several other African countries that are reeling from the impact of COVID-19 and then Russia-Ukraine war. Is this not evidence enough? With for instance, the UK pound. As we speak now, it's declining in terms of its strength. Is that not evidence enough?
Yeah, but see, you must always appreciate that in all moments you must look at what you call your comparative economies. Monkeys play by size. I mean, why should little Ghana be talking about what's happening in the UK or what's happening in the US? Talk about what's happening in Côte d'Ivoire. That's next to you. Talk about what's happening in Nigeria. Talk about what's happening in Rwanda, what's happening in Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Mali, countries like you, because that is the kind of economy you have. So you can see that this talk about UK is having some problem with the country. So what? That's just an excuse. That's typically a convenient excuse being sought by people who simply do not want to face the fact that they have caused the problem and they are leading the problem. Listen, in 2020, in the midst of all that difficulty, have you heard of any country having a budget deficit of 16%? No. Côte d'Ivoire did not. Nigeria did not. Rwanda did not. Benin did not. None of these countries have 16% deficit. Now, if you can cause your economy to have such a high deficit as 16%, that's massive. And the last time we had such double digit, I mean, almost at that level of 16% was actually 2008, when the same group was in power. So it tells you that there is a certain habit of going into what you call reckless expenditure, which really causes the problem to this country. And that's exactly what they've done. So the problem we are having from 2021 coming actually has been because they used the election year 2020 to simply spend as if there is no tomorrow. Now, if you spend as if there is no tomorrow, you are literally sowing, and the seeds you sow, you harvest them. Like it is said in the good book, when it shall be given back unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall be poured into your bosom. They sowed absolute recklessness. They sowed irresponsibility. They were so desperate for winning power that they were ready to do anything, took advantage of the difficulty people were going through, and literally just pumped money into the system to win election. And then as soon as they won power, what did they do? They came back and slapped more taxes on the same people. No, we are talking about people who simply do not care about the nation enough. They care about themselves, they care about their power, but the country, unfortunately, don't care enough.
Now, if we are to work with your argument or your position you hold, then the IMF would also be wrong, because we have heard the IMF make the case that indeed the Ghanaian economy is on its knees as a result of the COVID-19, as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. They have data, they have statistics, they have been meeting the government of Ghana. Are they wrong?
You know, you don't always want to pay heed to every single thing that's said by the multilaterals, because multilaterals have ways of being very diplomatic. The kind of thing they tell you in your bedroom, when they come in the public, they may not necessarily say so.
Are you speaking from experience?
I'm talking from experience.
So
It's
during
naturally the case that you don't always want to pay heed to every single thing that is said, because it's not their responsibility to enter into what you call the politics of the land. Basically, they come from outside. They basically have a relationship with the government. So naturally, you don't expect that they are coming to want to be embarrassing that same government. But you want to know exactly what the situation is.
But are you suggesting that the IMF is pouring untruths out there?
The question about whether the IMF is pouring untruth or not, let me give a typical scenario. In around 2018, when, for example, this Sino-Hydro agreement was done, we then was in Parliament. We basically told the IMF in plain language that, listen, what it is that our friends in power were trying to do amount actually to what you call a contingent liability that this country is going to have to take into account.
Okay.
The IMF at the time was typically doing the typical diplomacy. They didn't want to really interfere and all. Today, it's come full circle. That Sino-Hydro is now the IMF is now requiring that the government of Ghana accounts for it as what you call part of its debt that the country has to. So that tells you that if you simply are going to take refuge in nice diplomacy that is being said around, when the reality that is hitting on a daily basis is different, then it means that you're not serious. So the people of Ghana should be looking at the real condition in which they live and not be listening to outsiders. Because outsiders are not living your situation. They are coming from outside.
Then would it not be fair? Would it not be fair for us to then not listen to the Moody's and the Fitch and the S&Ps who have been downgrading our economy, considering, for instance, that the Finance Ministry protested the downgrade, especially by S&P some time back, and then Fitch as well, for which even Africa, you remember His Excellency the President just recently made the case that the way in which the world, the rating agencies rate African countries should be taken a look at. And so if you say that we should discard the position of, let's say, the IMF or maybe the World Bank, should we equally not be looking at the Fitch, the S&Ps and the Moody's and co with another mind? If your position is to go by.
I think you should appreciate what I'm saying. I'm telling you that when the IMF meets the government in chambers, they tell you exactly the full truth.
Okay.
So it's not, I'm not telling you that when they meet the government of the day, they come and play diplomacy with the government of the day. They tell you the truth inside. What it is they say on the outside can be part of the diplomacy. Now, the Fitch and the Moody's and so on that you're talking about, they basically have no such engagement with you. Because they have to provide data because of the investors out there. So for them, their number one priority is the investors out there who want to know whether they can put their money into your economy, whether they should take their money out of your economy. So they tend to be very blatant as it is. They don't have any reason to want to play any diplomacy with you. Now, so if they tell you, for example, that your economy is not doing well, clearly your economy is not doing well because their number one priority is the investors out there. They need to give information to those investors in order for them to advise them. So whether they want to continue putting their money in your economy or they want to take their money and go to another economy. You understand? So the two situations are not the same. Okay. So even in the case of the IMF World Bank, I'm not telling you that they don't have credibility. I'm just telling you that, I mean, just, let's say, Sammy, I can meet you in your bedroom or inside your house and I can tell you a few very straight truths. But when I come out there, I may try to be diplomatic when people ask me, oh, what's the situation with Sammy? I try to be nice. So people need to know the difference between diplomatic talk and the real thing that the IMF tells this government. The truth of the matter is that this economy is on its knees because the government of the day has been absolutely reckless. They've cared far more about winning power. They've cared far more about themselves than they have cared about the people of Ghana. So their decisions have not been decisions that have come out of love for nation. Their decisions have fundamentally come as a result of love for themselves to hold on to power, even if that brings pain, hardship, suffering to the people of Ghana. If that destroys the future of our children, they simply do not care enough. Their number one priority is that we just have to do anything in order to cling on to power. Power is all that matters to us. We don't care the consequences.
Elections overspend. Is that not cyclical? Is that has not been the norm in our country where during election years you realize we overspend, where during election year you have these Bretton Woods institutions raising concerns about how the success is choked, could be thrown off gear?
It so happened that elections can actually bring pressures, and those pressures sometimes can lead to overspending. That is true. But you recall, we've never in our history had a situation where, as a result of election overspending, our deficit financing has reached 16%. We've never had that in our history. We've never had a history where, as a result of that recklessness done in an election, your currency has crashed. What we're talking about today. You've never had a situation where inflation has had to push towards 40%. Never happened today. Never had a situation where you now have what you call your economy being downgraded almost on a weekly basis. We've never had that before. We've never had a situation where, as a result of election overspend, what's the name? Your economy is effectively on its knees. There's so much suffering and so much hardship on the line. So we cannot use some of the past history of election overspend to justify what we have today. Because remember, we are also talking about a group that has inherited what I consider to be the strongest economy as far as our history is concerned. I don't mean the economy was perfect, but I mean, if you're talking about inheriting an economy, there is no government in our history, not Rawlings's government, nor Kufuor's government, nor Atamia's government, nor John Mahama's government in the Fourth Republic. He inherited the kind of strong fundamental that Nana Akufo-Addo inherited in 2017 when he came to office. There's no government. There's no government, for example, that came into office and was handed over what you call two major oil fields. No government in our history. No government had handed over to them the massive portfolio of investment in every area, educational sector, health sector, energy sector, water system, infrastructure in transport and roads. I mean, go into every sector, you can see massive portfolio that was handed over to you. No government came into office and met, very few government have come to office and met what you call balance of payment surplus, have met such gross international reserves of $6.2 billion handed over to you. You met a situation where we have resolved the issue of subsidies in both power and utility, what you call power sector and petroleum sector, handed over that to you, gave you buffer stock, which became the basis for which you are doing your planting for food, handed over to you, what's the name, Ghana Infrastructure Fund, handed over to you sinking fund to enable you to take care of what you call liabilities that are going to become due, handed over to you institutions like, what's the name, Ghana Exim Bank, which is supposed to help you to be able to push our financing for what's the name, export, handed over to you institutions that were strong like Ghana Port and Harbour Authority, Ghana Airport, so strong that they could on their own balance sheet borrow and do massive expansion of their infrastructure. So I'm telling you about the massive platform that is handed over to you. Solve actually do so. Handed over to a country where energy situation was no more a problem. Well, all this must give you room to be able to run. If within a matter of just a few years, you run this economy aground to a point where we have never seen before, the economy is on its ground. The people of Ghana have lost hope. There's so much suffering. There's so much pain. The problem is you.
All right.
Fully you.
Let's work with the point you made about the gentleman's conversation and then the public conversation, still staying on the IMF. Let me read to you the staff report of the IMF 2021, where they highlight the key issues with the Ghanaian economy. Now, this is their context.
Okay.
They say that Ghana has been hit hard by the pandemic. The government's proactive response helped contain the spread of COVID-19, protecting lives and limiting the impact on economic activity. However, partly because of the pandemic, the fiscal position worsened considerably last year with a sharp increase in public sector debt. Now, the outlook and risks, this is what they say. Medium-term prospects remain favorable, driven by opportunities in digitalization, structural transformation, and the expansion of extractive industries. However, the ongoing recovery is threatened by possible new pandemic waves and rising debt vulnerabilities, including the large financing needs that leave government exposed to rollover and solvency risks. This is the IMF. Their introductory comment on the Ghanaian economy.
Okay.
Now, is it not blunt enough as to the issues causing us as to where we are? They specifically mention our debt stock. They also mention the issue of the COVID-19 and co.
Now, compare what you just read with what the World Bank rep in this country spoke not long ago. That the problem confronting the Ghanaian economy were there even before COVID. I'm sure you remember that statement.
Yeah,
right?
I remember.
That the government of Ghana must acknowledge that the challenges of this economy started before COVID.
Okay.
That is the real truth. Now, so seeking refuge for COVID, which COVID has happened to every other African country, yet the other African countries are not on their knees, should tell you where the real truth lies. As I'm telling you. Listen, every country in West Africa, face the same problem. Why did they all not have 0.4% growth in 2020? Why should we be the only one that has 0.4% growth in West Africa? Every other country in West Africa and in Africa.
Is the convex not true, where at some point we were supposed to be the fastest, rising economy in the sub-region and then in Africa as well, if at the time they were also supposed to be doing everything right?
Let's say, for example, in the time of the MPP, the highest growth they've had was in 2017, about 8%. You know what accounted for that growth? Two oil fields that we had handed over to them in 2016. So that growth was actually predicted even by 2016. President Mahama predicted it. The IMF and World Bank predicted it. The credit rating institutions knew about it. So if you, Samir Shan, were the president of Ghana in 2017, the economy would have grown by 8%. It had nothing to do with Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. It had everything to do with two massive oil fields handed over to them. Now, so if you describe the economy as the fastest growing, yes, that's true. Credit to the visionary leadership that led to what you call the development of those two major oil fields and handed over to you. That actually shows where the credit must go. So when you say, for example, that therefore, if that's even not supposed to be a justification at all. The truth of the matter is that if you have such platform which was given to you, such rock solid economy that was handed over to you, you have no business having 0.4% in 2020. No country in the sub-region had that. Burkina Faso, Togo, you can mention it, none of them had that kind of growth. None of them had a 16% deficit. None of them saw what you call strangulating debt. So the problem has to do with recklessness and irresponsibility of the leadership. That's really what it is.
So we've established what the issues are. The IMF is in. What should we be doing? Let's look for solutions. We should be switching to you very shortly in 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
What should Ghana do with the IMF in the equation and we seeking some 3 billion, which people say would not even suffice? If you talk about debt restructuring alone, wouldn't suffice. What should we be doing?
Ghana should, first and foremost, I'm talking about the leadership. The leadership should do exactly what it should have done from the very beginning.
Which is?
Stop lying to the people. Because when you continue lying to the people, pretending that they are not smart, what you do is that you actually dig yourself a hole in which you go. That's why, for example, they made all the noise about we won't go to IMF. Today, they are on their knees before the IMF. And they've made similar noises about other things. Today, they've gone full circle. For example, look at, for example, what they've said about reviewing free SHS. They've gone full circle. They are back. Because their belief is that governance is all about how many lies you can tell, how you can con the people, how you can spin the people and lie to them thinking that they are not smart. That must stop. Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia must accept that the line must come to an end. Take responsibility. You understand? You see, the people of Ghana, they understand. They know that you are not perfect. You can make mistakes. But don't think they are fools. Tell them the truth. That's the number one. 2, live within your means. Stop trying to live beyond your means. And that's exactly what IMF is going to tell them. Now listen, you cannot continue living as if you have everything when you don't. You can't continue living as large as we see, the irresponsible, lavish, what you call lifestyle that we see, for example, in the president and his government. You can't continue having kind of bloated government that you continue having. You cannot, for example, think that you can go about doing all this political stuff, thinking that you are fooling people when you don't have the means to be able to sustain them. So live within your means. Stop this, what you call reckless borrowing, and stop using the money that you are borrowing for consumption. Put them into what you call critical infrastructure. Do exactly what the NDC did by having, for example, expansion in Ghana Port and Harbours Authority. We put money, for example, in the Tuabo gas, and all those monies went into infrastructure that can repay for itself. Do that, and then what it is that has to go, for example, to social infrastructure, expand opportunities like water systems, take electricity into every nook and cranny. Since they came, we took electricity expansion from 52% all the way to about 83% in a matter of 8 years. Since they've came, they've not been able to go past even 1% on a yearly basis. That tells you how much this country is retrogressing and going backward under them. The same thing we did on the water system. That is what you do when you care for country. You put the resources in a manner in which that can benefit the ordinary people. What we've seen them do is simply go on all these, what you call slogans. I mean, 1D, 1. They think they're fooling people. 1V, 1D. They're deceiving people. One constituency, $1 million. It's all about deception of people, because for them, they think life is all about lie to them, spin, do 1 and shout 100, do 2, shout 2 million, then you can fool them and win their vote. That must stop. They understand that, you see, people will know whether you have done what is right or not. You don't need to go on blowing trumpet every minute to deceive them. Just do what you got to do it well. What is worth doing is worth doing well. That is what they must do. If they don't come to that point of responsibility, to live within their means, take accountability, stop running away from the truth, trying to continue deceiving people, living beyond your means, all this, they will go through the pain and so on, and they will crush this economy again. We need leadership that tells the truth.
Some hold the view that if you gauge the posture of the IMF, it's as if they are treating the government with kids' gloves. Do you share that view?
I don't know about kids' gloves, because I know one thing for a fact. Whatever you do, IMF is simply not going to allow you to go ahead living irresponsibly. Because don't forget, the aim of the IMF is simply to ensure that the people out there who want to, for example, do business with you are clear that you are doing what is right. So IMF is simply watching over you and then give the green light to them and say, okay, they are doing what is right. Now, if you decide to do not what is right, IMF clearly will not give that green light to anybody. And as long as out there people don't want to do business with you, you're in trouble. Because don't forget, we are a very integrated economy now. So naturally, we need investors from every part of the world into our economy. Now, if IMF does not give you that green light, those investors are not going to come. That is actually what it means by policy credibility. These are the same people who were laughing at the NDC. Oh, they don't have policy credibility. They went to IMF. But today, you actually have a much more disastrous lack of credibility as far as your policy is concerned. No wonder nobody wants to do business with you, and the economy is crashing under you.
Would $3 billion be okay to resolve issues from the IMF?
No, $3 billion clearly. You know, the thing is this: we don't actually. That's another thing we need to understand. You see, IMF job is not to give you money for you to survive. That's not what IMF does. That's one. I remember one time I took on the finance minister, even as a member of parliament, took him on the floor of parliament. And listen, Mr. Minister, stop saying things like you go to IMF for a bailout. Because that statement is a statement made by people who do not understand how an economy is managed. IMF, for example, doesn't give you money for you to build roads. IMF doesn't give you money for you to pay your workers. IMF doesn't give you money for you to do business. No. IMF's main job is to simply oversee what you do, and therefore give that green light that will allow for donors like maybe the the World Bank, other development institutions that want to do business with you, what you call private investors who want to do business with you, that listen, this economy looks like it's now being at least properly managed. So that is the main job of the IMF. The money IMF gives you is what you call a balance of payment support, which mostly goes to supporting your currency. That really is what it does. But the real development of the country in terms of getting resources, that is not coming from the IMF. So this whole misconception that we go to the IMF because the IMF is going to give us money is a wrong conception. The real money is not from IMF. It's coming from other donors and other investors who now feel confident because of the IMF. So this government will have no option. They have to do what is right. Otherwise, there's not going to give that green light by the IMF for them to be able to receive any more what you call interest coming from outside of this country.
We have 15 minutes. If you just join us, I'm speaking to Mr. Fifi Kwetey, and we're talking about the Ghanaian economy. But I'm sure that for those of you who might not know him, you might be asking yourselves questions. But who is Sammy talking to this morning with economics and, you know, all the terminologies and all of that? And so we'll come to him because he's got dreams, he's got aspirations, and he says that when he was a member of parliament, I've always had this question. Your seat, Ketu South,
Sure.
It's a safe seat.
Sure.
In the stronghold of the NDC. I wonder why you didn't go for that seat again. I've always been wondering why.
Because, first and foremost, I personally do not believe that you need to hold on to anything for life. I often wonder, why do people even hold on for so long for things? I believe you do what you do to the best of your ability. You give yourself a time you want to do. Then you move on to other things. That's how I believe that life must be. That's why, for example, I have issues with African politicians who cling on to power and are desperate to do anything to hold on to power. I don't understand it. I've never understood that. Because for me, it shows that you are simply desperate. It shows that you think that outside of power, you have absolutely nothing that you can do. That's why my greatest respect goes to Nelson Mandela all the time. For me, that is an icon that every African politician might look to. A man who had the capacity to remain in office and step away. That for me is a dream. You know, when you do that, it shows that you are secure in yourself. Invariably clinging on and using every means under the earth to hold on. For example, what we saw in 2020, where a president who is almost approaching 80 had to preside over an election that saw 8 people die just to hold on to power. For me, no, it shouldn't be. It should be. When you do that, it shows that you are simply desperate. You are a politician who cannot see beyond power. Meanwhile, the aim really of a politician is really to just contribute to the well-being of people. You understand? So for me, I feel there are different ways we can help in this business. I never intended to be a parliamentarian for very long. In fact, a lot of my colleagues will tell you, even after the first term, I had consideration, should I stop? But people say, no, after first term, you can't just stop. I said, you know what? So right from the very first term, all the people who were close to me, including even people in the constituency, knew that beyond 2 terms, I'm not going. Why? Because I feel I just wanted an opportunity to make a contribution to my people, to be able to leverage my position, because I went into parliament in office. I wanted to leverage my position as former Deputy Minister of Finance, also Minister of Agri, to be able to take development to my people. And I believe I did as far as I could go. But my greatest joy really is always at the national level, much more than the local level. Why? Because I operate best when I see the big picture. When I find myself in a position where you can make contributions to be able to help different aspects of the country. I'm a genuine patriot. I love this country so much. So for me, every opportunity to come to a place where I can contribute directly to the well-being of the whole, I perform much better there.
Let me deviate.
Yeah.
Let me deviate. I was going to focus on you.
Sure.
But you said that you were a genuine patriot.
Yeah.
Ghana is on your heart.
Absolutely.
If Mr. Ken Oforiatta called you now and said, Fifi, because of your experience, I want to work with you to resolve the issues of our economy, would you?
What do you mean, work with me? In what way?
Come work in the Ministry of Finance.
No, I'm not a technocrat, so I can't work in the Ministry of Finance. I was there as a
consultant.
Not even as a consultant. I'm a politician.
A consulting politician.
But let me tell you something. That's something that people do not even appreciate. The problem we are going through, even as an economy, It's not largely because there is lack of consultancy. It's not largely because there's lack of even economic know-how. It's coming from what you call political corruption. It's coming from indiscipline. It's coming from a group of people who are not ready to put nation first. So listen, you can even bring people at the World Bank. You can bring people from the US, everything to consult for you. If you do not love country enough to be able to put that country ahead, you will crash the economy. So it's not even an issue of that. In terms of loving country, let me tell you a situation. People did hear Ken Ofori-Atta come out in an interview at City FM to speak about the fact that there need to be a review of the free SHS.
Yeah.
You know about that story?
Yeah.
God, let me tell you what predated that story. He came before the Finance Committee of Parliament. That was, I think, 2 weeks before he went to that interview. And when he came before the Finance Committee, I actually asked him in plain language, Mr. Minister, do you think it is fair for the government of Ghana to continue using the taxes of the people to pay your child's fee and my child's fee when you know you and I can actually not just pay for our children, but possibly pay for more? I took him on. And in that finance committee, he admitted that, listen, there's a need for a certain look at it. Now, that is how we engage. And 2 weeks after he went to make that statement, people hail him for that statement. But actually, the truth is that he actually came and picked that from us in the NDC when we told him in plain language that this irresponsibility must stop.
Do you consider the finance minister an honorable man?
To be honest with you, I think no.
He's not.
I think he's not. And for me, anybody who put himself above his country is not honorable. Anybody, for example, whose business continue to prosper while we continue accumulating large debts that are strangulating us and causing the hardship to the people, that person hasn't got any honor. So for me, no, he has got no honor. Honor means putting nation ahead of yourself, not profiting while your country is bleeding, while your people are suffering. That's no honor.
Let's come back to you. So why do you want to be General Secretary of the party, of the NDC?
You know, I believe also that we are, we've been on this journey now for 30 years, multi-party democracy. We started in 1982, we are now in 2022, 30 years journey. And 30 years journey means we've been on this journey, we've reached a stage where we need to start having a re-examination of this whole politics that we are doing. Because these two major parties really have held the destiny of this country for the last 30 years. I believe it is time, given the challenges that we are facing as a country, given the lack of hope, especially in our youth, seeing how the youth of this country are losing hope, even in the politics. They've reached a stage where they are literally saying that, oh, the two parties are the same. They care about themselves, they don't care about the country, they don't care about the people. Now, what it simply means is a certain new politicking must emerge. And that politicking must be one that places emphasis on greater love for nation. Patriots must emerge. I believe that NDC as a party was anchored on deep patriotism. You know, the irony is that NPP carries the name patriotism. But if you check the history, they actually have shown that they do not have a lot of patriotism. They've opposed almost every positive thing right from the very beginning. These are people who wanted, for example, to stop the unitary state that we had and turn this country into federalist state because they felt that a few people had resources and those people must profit from it. The rest of the country can perish if they want. They fought against the independence of Ghana. Even when we wanted to become a Republican state, they fought against it. They fought against Akosobo Dam, fought against the motorway, fought against the 1992 constitution, fought against VAT. I mean, so these are people who get fun. They fight against anything progressive. So they are not people who are shown to be very patriotic.
But can they also reference instances where things have been fought against by the NDC as well?
No, but I'm giving examples of their history.
But they would also have examples of instances where NDC has staged walkouts, NDC has not supported the party.
I've not said NDC is perfect. Then I'm talking about if you check the DNA of the Busia Dankwa people, they actually have been against every positive thing right from the very beginning of this country up to today. Because largely for them, it's power first. I don't care about the principles. I don't care about whether it's right or wrong. I just want power. And the process, the country goes on. Anyway, the point I'm making is that there's a need for greater patriots to emerge. I believe I have such deep love for this nation. And of course, deep love and commitment to my political party. And after General Johnson Asienu Nketia has served in that capacity for about 17 years and has announced that he's no more going, I believe I am in a position to be able to step into the shoes of Johnson Asiedu Nketia, provide that deep level of patriotism that this party is in need of. Rally this party to remember where we are coming from, that we are patriots. That our anthem calls on us to arise, arise for Ghana, all patriot of the land. To remember the core principles that brought this party into manifestation. Also, to be able to help us move to the next level where it becomes a party of what you call not just patriotism, but a party of solutions, a party of creativity. That is what our youth are looking out for. They're looking for answers and solutions. They're looking for people who love country, but also people who can help provide answers. And I think I'm uniquely positioned to be able to bring all the experiences I've had, not just in serving this party right from 1992 when I was chairman of the NDC at the University of Ghana campus during the election. I mean, work subsequently, what's the name, in the youth forum of the NDC, work in the office of President Rawlings, became what you call the one in charge of the communication of the NDC, subsequently became Deputy Finance Minister, became Agri Minister, Transport Minister, MP for 2 terms. I think the collective experiences I've had position me to be able to move into that position of the General Secretary of the party, which is the Chief Executive of the party, to be able to not just continue the good work that Johnson Asiedu has done, but actually see whether we can even take us to the next level, where we become much more of a party of answers, of solutions, a party that thinks about how we can resolve problems even of party workers, bring greater fairness, be able to bring greater empowerment to the people who work for the party, provide the trustworthiness that will make our people all the way to the branches know that the leaders they have are leaders they can trust, that when the going gets tough, these are leaders who stand for what is right and make sure the right thing gets done. Leaders who they know are not bribable, cannot be manipulated, that MPP cannot in any way, as it were, try to manipulate or bribe into doing anything against the interests of the party. Leaders above all that will be able to work in a team to ensure that the original ideals of this party are anchored again, that this party become a party of patriots, people who love the country, a party that will make good use of the resources of the country, provide solutions for especially the future of our young people and our children's children.
You alluded to the fact that there is a perception in the minds of Ghanaians, very much rife, that the NDC and the NPP are the same. Do you share that view?
My view is that MPP historically, and I like to call it the MPP family, because not just now, it started with UP, in fact, it started with NLM, became UP, became Progress Party, eventually became PFP, and then now become New Patriotic Party. So I call it the MPP family. The MPP family actually has much more problem than any political party in our history, because effectively it's a party that thinks too much about itself first before thinking about country.
But why would the people of Ghana have that perception that the
No,
socialist political party and the
building.
capitalists are virtually the same?
No, I don't even understand this business about socialist capitalists, because you see, it's not even the case. This country is a country simply that's got problems that have to be resolved. And the two parties, as much as possible, are proposing solutions to those answers. So it's not so much about left or right, it's about finding answers and finding solutions. NDC looks at itself as a party that is right in the center, even though we lean a bit left. We are a pragmatic party that want to find solutions, that want to solve the problem of the people of Ghana. And we want to do it in a manner that shows that we care about the people. We care about everybody, but we care especially for people who are at a disadvantage, in order to ensure that they also are given an opportunity to be able to rise. So effectively, that's what it is. But over a period of association, you sometimes pick habits from each other. And I believe even members of our own party have picked some of these, what you call greed and selfishness. I mean, that is coming from a party that fundamentally thinks only about itself. People in my party have picked that as well. So I'm saying this is a period for re-examination. This is a period to introspect, to look at ourselves, to reflect, look ourselves in the mirror and say, listen, these are things we have picked from there. These are things that are not very good if you want to give hope to this country.
What are some of these things? What are these things that you see have been picked from?
No, effectively, you can sum it to one thing: putting self before the nation. And that is an MPP DNA. And that, unfortunately, even some in my party have picked it. So fundamentally, the number one thing is, okay, what is in it for me? Not how good it is for the party. What is in it for me? Not how good it is for the country. We need to have patriot. Patriot means you always look at the well-being of the group. And then the well-being of the group, you also. So, for example, if you have that situation, you will never, for example, sacrifice your party just because you are getting some advantage. You will never do something against the group just because you are benefiting. You are looking at the interests of the group because you know in the well-being of the group you are fine. When you build a party that is made up of people who look at the welfare of the group, those people also become the great patrons who do things for nation because they will never sacrifice their nation simply because of their party. And that is what we need. The young people of today are looking for people who put the well-being of the nation ahead of their own well-being. So if the only reason for which you are in a political party is because you are looking at how much I can get for myself, rather than what can we do for the whole group so that the country become better, then it's not good enough. And then this is started as a group of patriots. I'm saying over time, we've picked some habit from the MPP, and it's important for us to be able to rededicate ourselves again to the original core values for which we started as a political party. And I believe we can do that. We can inspire the young generation even more. We can tell the children that, listen, you have much greater hope for the future because you have in NDC a group of people who will make sure that even though they are not perfect, nation first, nation first, nation first is the team. And that is one of the reasons why I want to run for this position, in order to see how we can rededicate ourselves, how we can speak not just to the soul of the NDC, but actually turn the NDC again into a machinery that loves country, and also hopefully set an example for the MPP. Because you know what? You must shine bright so that even your enemy will see that brightness and decide to make a conversion. I feel that we need a country where the two parties would actually love this country enough. I want a situation where I can see MPP becoming better in terms of loving nation. So that if NDC is not in power, I know this country is still safe. I don't want a situation when NDC leaves power, then it comes from a group of people who are thinking only about how much we can take, how many businesses we can destroy, how we can kill the other people, how we can pervert the judiciary, pervert the electoral commission, pervert the media, pervert institutions so that we can grab everything. People who are thinking only about how we can mortgage the future, even minerals, they want to mortgage, the mortgage get fund, they are thinking about how they can profit. No, we don't want that. We want a nation that the two parties can all love the country now. So it becomes a challenge of excellence. So for instance, I do 95, your job is to come, I want to do 96, not to come and to do 45, and in the process you are bribing everybody, hoping that you can deceive the country to remain power, to retain power. That is my hope, and I believe that as General Secretary, we can, what you call set into motion a process to take this party to the next level, to inspire our young generation. That for me is the big dream.
Do you think your people would love this message? Because from all you are saying, I remember the former president, may he so rest in perfect peace, George Rawlings, made the statement to the effect that the NDC must stop mimicking the NPP.
That's true.
And we all know the fates that befell him at the latter part of his, life. The estranged relationship between him and his political party, because he was seen to be making certain comments that were, not liked by people within the party. And these are the same comments he was making. Put Ghana first, and not money first. Would your party love this message?
My party is a party that was born as a result of patriotism. It's a party that was born as a result of what you call the dedicated work by young patriots who took this country from a brink of collapse in 1982 and brought this country to a place of respectability, a place of pride. And then that allowed us to begin this process known as the Fourth Republican Constitution. So the people of the party understand who we are. But of course, every time, again, you need to look back on your journey in order to become better. You need to do an examination. And I believe my people believe that we are not a perfect institution. There's always the need for us to change. Listen, as I told you, over time, people naturally want to mimic things because they are seeing those things. But if they start understanding that a party that fights for the well-being of the all is a party that actually can secure the future, not just of Ghana, but also of their own children. Because every single one of them wants the well-being of their children. No matter how selfish anyone can be, he wants the well-being of his child. He wants the well-being of his child's child. So they love themselves, they love their families too. So if that party can be that inspiration that will bring greater good for the whole, clearly our members will. What our members will want also is to have leaders that they know they can trust, so that when resources become available, those resources will be able to filter down and filter in a manner that is fair. And that's why they need leaders that they can trust. Now, if I love my country enough, how much more will I not love people who work in my party? People who are toiling for my party to ensure if there are opportunities, they are given fair opportunity. The same way other people who even do not belong to the party would also be able to have those fair opportunities. So that is something I believe is a message that resonates. President Rawlings did not have an issue because he asked us not to mimic the NPP. No. I think some of the issues rather had to do with he felt betrayed by certain personalities that he believed he had worked with, that he felt maybe had taken over the party and he rather was pushed to the side. And those were internal issues. But to be honest with you, I mean, if you talk to any core member of the NDC, I mean, they remain grateful to the fact that he, together with other patriots, were the reason why this country was brought back from a place of collapse and the NDC became what it is. These are principles that are eternal, and I believe the NDC believe in these principles, and we need to simply speak to them again, not just for the sake of the NPP, but for the sake of Ghana. Remember, our national anthem, our party anthem says, "Arise, arise for Ghana, ye patriots of the land." Right. So we believe in genuine patriotism, and our people understand that patriotism means what is good for Ghana. Once it's good for Ghana, it will be good for them as well.
Now, our time is fast spent. I'm sure, seeing how diligent you are with your figures, you'd have done some SWOT analysis with your team as to your key opponent, who's your brother, Elvis.
Actually, there are two. It's not just Elvis, but it's also Peter Otokono.
Yeah, yes, there's Peter as well. Now, in your analysis, what's your greatest advantage over them? In your analysis?
I think everybody has got their strength. I believe I've got unique strength. I believe first and foremost, I'm senior in the party relating to them. I've been right here from the very beginning, 1992. That's one. I believe if you listen to me well, my message is a message that even goes beyond party, because my message is a message that absolutely is pushed by a great love for this nation. So it's a patriotic message. And that patriotic message means rededicating ourselves to core values of the NDC. That I go speaking to a lot. I also believe that it comes to fighting the NPP and taking power from the NPP. I have much more to talk about than them. Because in terms of, for example, the last time NPP was in power, I mean, not only was I critical as far as the communication that took NPP out was concerned, but actually even far more important when it mattered most, because we are dealing with a group that was desperate to stay in power. It was critical for a few people to be able to ensure that result collation was done perfectly in order to stop the stealing in the strong room. And I was actually critical in that. Not only did I lead the process of collating the result properly and on time, I also was part of the team in the strong room as a result of those clear results that we had ahead of the NPP and even of the Electoral Commission. We stopped the NPP when they wanted to steal. That's another one. I have another one about you can absolutely trust me. I'm not saying that they cannot be trusted, but one thing every NDC person knows, that this man here absolutely can be trusted. He's absolutely dedicated. He simply cannot be manipulated. Nothing can move him, because he loves this party and loves this nation very dearly. You can trust him. I'm a man of my word. For example, I can tell you, for example, that my brother Elvis, like myself, declared earlier that we were not going to come out to say we were contesting for the General Secretary until Asiedu Nketia speaks that he's no more going. I kept that word to the end. My brother could not. At a point, he actually gave up and actually came out and announced that he was going to run, I mean, regardless of consequence. That tells you who I am. I keep my word. I say my word, I keep it. Because that's me. I want you to know that my word is my bond. When I say it, I mean it. I'm not saying it and doing the opposite. No, that's me. I go all the way to the end. The other thing is that I'm actually what you call somebody who is very, very about creativity, about answers, about solutions. I believe in shifting the status quo. I don't believe that we have to keep the same forever. We've been in this journey for 30 years, and I'm absolutely filled with ideas. I believe in working in a team. I know how exactly different people bring what you call different strengths to the team. I'm somebody, I believe in inspiration. So I have a certain depth in the way I do things. And also I listen a lot. So you listen, you work with me, you know, some of the great listeners. I mean, the people I've worked with, both at the Finance Ministry, at the Ministry of Agri Transport, they will tell you that if there's one thing they love about that minister, is somebody who listens a lot, and that's what I do. In the midst of those, that listening, I'm able to put together things. I have what you call great inventive solutions, and I believe this party is in need of such dynamism, creativity, solution-driven party, a party that is much more scientific, more data-driven, that is constantly looking at ways in which we can make the structures of the party stronger, how we can get greater resources, how we can ensure that those resources are fairly distributed down through what the political value chain all the way to the branches. So those are all what you call things that actually, and of course, I think the greatest advantage also, one of the greatest advantages I have is that I can speak to the economy much more than any of them can do. And this battle coming in 2024 is going to be a battle for the economy. And what blessing can a party have than to have someone who absolutely is a great speaker related to the economy in the heart of the party, supporting the flag bearer, supporting the running man. I mean, this party could not be much more blessed than to have me at this critical moment going for the chief executive position of the party.
All right, so let me ask this. You sold the brand of honor, the brand of trust, the brand of creativity and all. So based upon trust and honor, per your SWOT analysis you did, what's your weakness? What's your greatest weakness?
Oh, everybody will definitely have some weakness. I think weakness will always be the fact that there's always room to do better. There's always room to do better. I've had a few reactions to the fact, oh, he's not very accessible to people, which I think is not exactly the truth. Because I can remember that when we were in office, if there was one particular minister, Laji Bature, I don't know whether you remember Laji Bature, who used to be in the media a lot. He actually did say, I mean, bless his soul, his passed on. I remember he actually said it plainly in the media. If there was one minister while in office who constantly replied to every text message that was sent to him, that was me. Because I knew then it was impossible picking most calls because you were so busy all the time. So I made it a point that every single message that was sent to me, you reacted. Now, so the issue of accessibility, I've heard some of my opponents claim, nah, the guy is not accessible, it's not true. You understand? I mean, and most people will realize that I make every effort now to at least respond back to people. So that's an issue that's been resolved. I have a few people also say, oh, guy is not a very friendly guy. It's not true. Because sometimes when you appear, when you speak with the kind of passion with which you speak with the kind of confidence I speak. Some people tend to think that it means you are arrogant. But no, if you know me, I'm a very down-to-earth person. I have absolute respect for people. I don't discriminate on people based on whether you are from a low class or high class, whether you're educated or not. No, I just have respect for genuine human beings because I have a genuine love for this nation and the people of this nation. So I believe that we all have ways in which we can improve. So weaknesses will always be there. But a wise man is one who is constantly open to new ideas in order to see how he can become much better.
Ghanaians are watching, they are listening. NDC folks are listening, they are watching. NPP folks are listening and watching. You said it's about Ghana, not particularly about the two political parties. What's your final message to them?
My final message is that we should, especially those of us who find ourselves in politics, we must appreciate that it's a privilege to be of service. But that service must always be for the good of all. We have a very great national anthem. It says, God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Now, so we must always remember that number one thing as politicians is to do whatever we can to make our community greater. You know, Sami, let me give you this example. You see, if you watch our human body, this human body is a perfect teacher of how we need to govern our societies. And if you watch the human body, what do you see? You see what you call different organs, different systems, different cells. Every single one of them has only one thing in mind, how to work for the well-being of the body. So the heart is doing what it can because he wants the body to be alive. The lungs doing the same, the liver, the kidney, the pancreas, the reproductive system, every part, I mean, the brain, everything, they are all just working for one thing, the well-being of the whole. And in the well-being of the whole, every one of them then finds satisfaction. I wish that we can understand that. And of course, I want my party to be the first to understand this message much deeper. Because when you can understand this message much deeper, it means that the trust from the people, especially the young people, will be much greater in us. At the same time, I'm not being selfish here. I want it to also be an inspiration for the NPP, as I told you. Because I feel these two parties, the country, whether we like it or not, will continue being. The small parties sometimes do not like that, but it's obvious that what's happening in America, what's happening in England, where there are two major political parties, that seems to be the case in Ghana too. So it means, therefore, that the two parties must take inspiration from each other. I feel NDC must set that tone, because I think that in the Fourth Republic, we are the eldest. We were born in June 10, 1992. NPP came in August. So we are like the senior brothers. So we also had the opportunity to have what you call governance earlier before they came into. So we need to set a new tone to take politics to the next level, where love for nation becomes number one, and then our people can find happiness in that. And that is a message some of us want to continue articulating and hoping that the people of the NDC can embrace it, so that this party can be much greater, much stronger, and we can then continue to sing from victory unto victory. The NDC shall lead a great, a great democratic Ghana. Our strength in unity.
I'm grateful, sir.
Stable
that,
democratic Ghana.
You made time to join us this morning on the Happy Morning Show. We are looking forward to similar conversations moving forward. If God grants your desire for you to lead the NDC, become General Secretary for the party, we'll still have that room and access to you to have such conversations.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you too. Thank you too, Sam.